it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in an air of money. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and folds, prepared to rain down cash and destruction upon the land. And the people did form an orderly line so that they too may purchase an imaginary horse. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty Kotick, clad in shimmering money from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did claim their savings too, smashing their banks asunder with a righteous fury. And when the day was done, and the player base stripped of all their worldly goods, they did turn to each other and say, "We shall name this day in his honor. Please, sir, can I have some more?" The Kotick said one word that day. One man, one murky, 100,000 retarded celestial steeds. This is Blue Horse. It begins now. Indeed, folks, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. The date today is the 16th of April 2010, also known as Blue Horse Day, an official holiday for everybody, and children, and wives, and mothers, and husbands, and cousins, and everyone all over the world is celebrating the wonderful news that we can, in fact, pay money for an imaginary horse. Truly, it's astonishing, it's a revelation, it's unbelievable, and we'll be talking about it a little bit later on the show. Stop hitting my keyboard. What am I going to in the show today? Well, yeah, so I may have maybe broken YouTube just a little bit. Yeah. Whoops. Oh well, never mind. If you haven't seen the video yet, I'd suggest you wait till after the show. If you haven't seen the video now, I'll be quite surprised, because it seems like everyone in the world has thus far. Ridiculous number of views. It's good, isn't it? It's so much fun to annoy people, infuriate them. It worked very well, honestly. Overall effectiveness of that particular troll was quite awesome. Yes. Right. What have I got coming up for the show today? Yeah, they'll be talking about the horse. Maybe not what you think. We'll see what we can do a little bit later on the show. Also, underwater. Apparently it's better where it's wetter, so I've been told. Under the sea. There'll be no accusations, just wonderful crustaceans under the sea. That's where we're going in Cataclysm, apparently. Submarines, naval combat, underwater stuff, oh my. Be talking about the name of the zone that I absolutely cannot pronounce in any possible respect a little bit later on in the show. And now that we are looking at all of the Cataclysm stuff, we're going to have a little bit of a look back at the triumphs and failures of Wrath of the Lich King, and what we have to look forward to, and what I hope will change. Yes, indeed, we'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. Also, your chance to contribute to the show, it is the illusion of choice. What that? No, Kotick, no! Yes, indeed, your chance to contribute to the show, email the Murloc at CynicalBrit.com. That is the Murloc at CynicalBrit.com. Pick a topic. If it's good, I might talk about it. If it's not, I probably won't. If it's really bad, I might get very upset. However, let me take this opportunity to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that this episode of Blue Please is brought to you by First Person Leisure, a new gaming podcast that reviews console, computer, card, and board games. Each episode reviews games with an emphasis on providing a humorous presentation and entertainment. Go check it out at firstpersonleisure.com. Now that that's out of the way, let's shill something else, why not? So, I got an email. I was actually talking to Drewby, the guy behind the series known as The Grind. They have a new trailer out for episode 3. Long time coming. Drewby is a lazy bugger, one might say. go check it out. I shall give you the link in the chat room, and I'll create a nice, easy link for the rest of you to follow. I'll also put it in the show notes, and indeed embed it into the archive page for cynicalbrit.com. In the meantime, let's give you a link. Head over to tinyurl.com/thegrind3trailer. Yes, indeed. tinyurl.com/thegrind3trailer. You can go and have a look at that. I said I'd promote it. He was a little bit upset that his trailer hadn't got as many views as That Retarded Horse. So, here you go. Here's a plug for you. Go and have a look at that. The grind's always great. And Keith and Drewby do that one. I believe I guest starred in one of those, actually. Come to think of it. Yes. Yes, I did, as I recall. I believe I was shouting a lot. Sounds appropriate for me. Anyway, ladies and gents, without further ado, it's time for this.
Mail time! That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it's time for the mail. Unsurprisingly, it involves reading it. Surprising, isn't it? Crazy. Unbelievable. Let's start it off right now, shall we? Do I really want to read that one? I don't know. Yeah, why not? Why not? Let's read it. It's about the retarded horse. It's from Marduk, and he says this. Hail, Total Biscuit, Lord of God of Trolling and Bane of Entitled Casuals. Yes, yes, flattery will get you everywhere. With regards to That Retarded Horse, who would have thought that such a simple video would have the scrubs in such furor? Great job with the video. I would like to direct my hate towards Acti Blizzard, but the simple fact of the matter is that if it weren't for the stupids that buy into these microtransactions, then the pet/mount store wouldn't exist. Of course, the typical argument for these horse owners is either, lol, you is poor and can't afford $25 zong, or shut up, insert homophobic insult of your choice. It worries me when the player base has devolved into such a state. I remember the good old days, nostalgia, when gamers tended to stick together since it was a niche market. I think that really stopped in 1986, just FYI. A subculture often mocked or shunned by society at large. It still is. The fact that it is now more mainstream has rendered places like the WoW forums uninhabitable by people with IQs that exceed their shoe size, and is encouraging developers to tag a price on any old tat that a designer threw together during a lunch break and cash in. With DLC becoming more and more popular, I am concerned that games sold in stores will soon be bare-bones versions, with the extra DLC required to play the complete experience. I don't have a problem with DLC per se. Additional content is fine, but, you know, slippery slope and all that. Bear in mind, slippery slope can be a bit of a fallacy. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. I'll return to sighing at everyone that I see with that retarded horse in-game, then laughing at the whispers they send me. Fare thee well. I can understand, honestly, I can understand why people would be concerned about the state of gaming as it happens. Yes, it is entirely possible that bare-bones versions will be released, and there has been a lot of drama regarding the release of StarCraft 2, the way that that's going to be done. People are saying, oh, it's a bare-bones version, you're not getting the full experience because you're splitting it into 3. Well, I mean, that's nonsense, honestly. Have you seen the length of the Terran campaign? It's huge. It's going to be 29 full-length missions. That's massive. That's longer than all of StarCraft 1 put together. And it's got a whole bunch of crazy stuff in it. So, I don't think that's going to happen for a little while, honestly. And to be honest, because of the amount of competition now, I would say that gamers will vote with their feet if they have any sense whatsoever. We've seen there are certain games that provide a lot of good content, a lot of good value. They have done well in the marketplace. Dragon Age Origins, prime example there, sold very well. And I would hope to see more success from games like that in the future, quite honestly. As to whether or not WoW's going to go down this route, well, you know, we've seen that they can sell a ton of them, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. Yes, indeed. Right, let's go and have a look at another email. We've got plenty in the mailbag to have a look at. So, this one is coming from Sumpoir, and he says this. Greetings, host of shows! I was listening to your talk about the usefulness of flasks over the years and thought I would give you my thoughts on the subject. Considering how cheap and mainstream flasks are these days, I wonder, why does Blizzard not just buff the classes outright? One possible solution for making flasks more useful is to have them grant proc-style buffs or debuffs. For example, a tanking flask can sometimes shield you for X amount of damage. A caster flask can give you a chance on direct damage spell hit to refresh all your dots on the target. Melee damage flask can give you a chance to increase your attack speed by X%. Another possible and simpler solution is to make flasks grant percentage-based buffs. That way they can scale with gear. They would have to have diminishing returns past the current level cap to prevent old flasks from being used with the latest expansion. Keep up with the great shows. Yeah. A few interesting points. Firstly, don't just buff the classes altogether. The point of flasks... Blizzard has lost sight of this slightly because they made flasks a little bit too easy to acquire and not quite as good as they used to be. The point of flasks is to provide an optional buff for people that want it. You know, a leg up for those who are willing to invest. Now, back in the day, that's how it used to be. Flasks of Supreme Power were pricey. Extremely pricey, ladies and gentlemen. And that's not good, because that meant that a lot of guilds didn't use them. But then I suppose you could turn it around and argue, hang on a sec, they're not supposed to be using it if they're not willing to dedicate the money to it. Flasks were for the hardest of the hardcore. I'm not sure if that really applies anymore. I think that the way that raiding has evolved has changed somewhat. Now everyone gets access to everything, so I don't suppose that there's really that exclusivity to the flask anymore. It used to be something that only the hardcore guilds used because it was pricey, because it's expensive. It's not so much anymore. Although, I do see your point. What is the purpose of this thing anymore if everyone can be assumed to have one by default? It makes me wonder, actually, whether or not Blizzard balanced those encounters around assuming that everyone is flasked up. I mean, we've already seen that they make certain assumptions as to class balance. Like, we assume that you have a certain number of healers, a certain number of tanks. We assume that you have a bloodlust. Now, they've tried to cut down on that a little bit in the past, but it makes me wonder if they assume that you're flasked up or not. I wonder if hard modes, perhaps, have this assumption in there by default that, of course, people that are trying hard modes are flasked. Now, I like the idea of procs, honestly. I think that there's not enough exciting procs in the game these days. It would be nice to see that kind of happen, but then again, it also becomes difficult to balance an encounter when you have random procs enter the mix. You can average them out over a period of time, but then you've got to bear in mind, well, who's going to use it, who's not. Some people are going to use the flask because it's more beneficial. I mean, that's already the case. You've got certain classes that just don't really bother with flasks as much because it's simply not as beneficial as it would be to, say, another class. I don't know, it might be interesting, honestly. I can't really deny as to whether or not I would approve of it, because, hey, it's a little bit crazy. But I do agree that flasks have somewhat, let's just say, diminished in usefulness over the course of the last couple of years. Now, last but not least, this one is from Andel Schwepp, and he says this: I was listening to your podcast last week and someone sent in an email about going too fast in heroics, and I have to agree with him or her. You have some points, but not all of them are right in my opinion. You said you're there for frost badges. Not everyone is. I have 2 alts, and I'm trying to get my welfare epics on them, and both of them are tanks. I can do fine keeping aggro, but I refuse to be rushed over a speed I'm comfortable with. And no amount of go faster, hurry, and I have limited time is going to make me rush. If you want a speed run, then that's fine. Find others with the same wish, like people from your guild. It's how I do it on my hunter. Not everyone is there to be rushed because you want to, and that is for everyone who shouts speedrun at the start of the HC. I tell them I'm not there to be rushed. I will go at my please. Leave if you have any problems with that. Well, here's the thing. As a tank, you're in a rather unique position to dictate that. The tank sets the speed. That said, if a tank is hanging around for 50 minutes in a dungeon, they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to saunter along, I'm going to stand there for a while, I'm not going to pull at the speed I should be pulling at, then you suck. And it's as simple as that. You are a bane upon the rest of your group. You are a albatross around their neck, an ankle weight around their ankle. Yeah. That's not good. That is disrespectful to everyone else in the group. I'm sorry, it is. You can make every excuse you want, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to gear up your ults, surely you want to get those badges as quickly as possible. Right? That's just common sense, right? You want efficiency. Surely that's the way to do it. At the end of the day, you're hurting your group and yourself by slacking. Simple as that. That said, I'm not saying that you are slacking. I'm just saying that speedrun, quote-unquote, is a pointless moniker. Speedrun doesn't exist anymore. We're talking about either you do the instance properly at an appropriate speed, or you don't. You don't have to sit down and mana break anymore the way that you used to. So what's the excuse of standing around? So just pull. Keep pulling. If your healer can manage it, if your tank can manage it, if your DPS can manage it, why not keep pulling? That's the proper way to do things now. It didn't used to be. You used to have to be careful. I liked that. Back in the day in Burning Crusade, I would have agreed with you that you should take a somewhat reasonable pace with things. But now, there is not a single challenging heroic in the entire game. Not one. Not one 5-man, ladies and gentlemen. Not anymore. Not after the nerfs. Everyone's overgeared for these damn things. There is no excuse not to chain pull. It's as simple as that. And if you're not chain pulling, if you're not at least pulling at a reasonable pace, if you're standing around and doing nothing, holding up the rest of your group, then I'm sorry, you are the problem. Simple as that. I don't care if you're listening or not. You are the problem. There is no excuse for that kind of behaviour. It is disrespectful to everyone else's time. And yours as well. I mean, that's the stupid thing about it. You want to gear up an alt, and you say, oh, well, not everyone's there for frost badges. No, everyone is there for frost badges, one way or the other. You say you're gearing up alts, well, what better way to gear them up with some damn tier 10? You say you're not going to spend those frost badges when you get them? That's nonsense. You're there for frost badges like everybody else is. You just happen to need Triumph as well. Good for you. You need Triumph, you're gearing up an alt, fine. Not a problem. But that doesn't mean you get to drag everyone else down and be dead weight on the group. That is just selfish. Simple as that. My name is Total Biscuit. You're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I'll be back after the break to talk about that retarded horse. A conspiracy, perhaps. Oh, yes. Enjoy.